we have the new announcements that were made at WWDC by Apple. So they are referring to all their AI innovation that they have done as Apple Intelligence. So I think that's very clever marketing off the bat. But we are going to go through an overview here of what they have proposed and maybe add some thoughts along the way and some of these features that they have introduced into their ecosystem. They did a few demos on how they use generative AI, like generative models, like image generation models and text based LLMs. So it seems that they are really focusing on creativity and providing their users an ecosystem of generative AI experiences. And experiences is really the keyword here. So, allowing users to have access to, for instance, in this case, to write with intelligent new tools. So, regardless of the app, if it's mail, if it's notes, it should be possible to do this today in the Apple ecosystem. And this is what they're introducing. You can see they say Apple Intelligence powers new writing tools which help you find just the right words virtually everywhere you write. This is not different from you using something like Grammarly. And there was a lot of discussion about what happens to tools like Grammarly. I don't know. I have very little opinions about that. I think the AI ecosystem is changing, right? And the experiences are also changing. Now, when a company like Apple, which already have an ecosystem of applications, introduces tools like this, obviously we really have to pay attention because obviously they will replace certain tools that we probably already use. And so, that could happen with these companies, but I think there is a lot of different issues and more challenges that we still have to address. This is not perfect technology. And so I think it's still useful to think about maybe considering other solutions along with this and just experimenting. I actually saw an interview with Wozniak the other day, and he was talking about all this Apple Intelligence, and something that he mentioned really resonated with me, which was it's really important for people to try out these tools and to make an opinion about what these tools, how to use them in their daily lives. And so I think that's really important, right? To just test them out and see if it's resonating with you, if it's something that's useful for you. If it's not, then move on. There are other applications and maybe other solutions that you could consider. And I think that's the right approach, right? It's not like, okay, this will be perfect. It's more like testing it out and see if it's helping you and making you more productive because that is really what matters. And there are other little announcements here. I like this one, obviously, because I do a lot of like creative work, and art is one of those things that I do enjoy doing using the Apple ecosystem of apps. And so here there are a couple of features that were introduced. This is part of Notes. So as you take notes, you can generate images as you go. And this is really useful for taking notes, like if you're in a class or a lecture and you're a person that learns visually. I think it's really powerful. And it's an interesting way how you can build rich experiences and make you more productive with these AI generative models. And this one was more about creating, again, images, unique Genmoji. This was something that was heavily discussed on Twitter and elsewhere, and custom memory movies. So generating more than just static images using AI and generative AI to generate richer types of content. And I think that's something that has happening throughout the space of AI, and Apple is doing, something like that as well. One interesting announcement that caught my attention was this new era of Siri, right? So Siri has been known to be this assistant that Apple has marketed for quite some time, and it's not a perfect assistant, right? It does certain things really well. It's very helpful as well, but it doesn't really have a lot of understanding of a lot of like daily tasks that you would perform, whether that be personally or professionally. So I was interested to find out like what exactly Apple was going to do around Siri. There was a lot of speculation, rumors about potentially some integration with other assistants that are powerful and can do a variety of tasks. And so what they announced is, which is I think not so surprising, is this integration with ChatGPT. ChatGPT doesn't need any introduction, but the fact that we can use ChatGPT inside Siri and these other writing tools that they're introducing is really interesting from a strategic point of view. Obviously, OpenAI benefits a lot because they get to plug into this massive ecosystem. They get users to test their models and be able to use them in the real world for real world tasks. So that's interesting from, I think, OpenAI point of view. But from Apple point of view, we have Siri. And Siri is supposed to be this great assistant. And my opinion about this is that, okay, maybe Siri could have solved a lot of these different problems, right? And make it interesting as what ChatGPT does, right? Because a lot of companies have done that too. Like we have all these chat models that we can use, and they're competing directly with OpenAI ChatGPT as well. So my expectation was, and I'm not really a power user of Siri, so I wouldn't really understand this, but the decision to plug into something like ChatGPT is like very confusing in a way when I first heard it. I think it makes sense, yes, because it now serves as some type of router where you can go to ChatGPT or could go to any other assistant. But I always saw Siri as some form of assistant, right, to help you navigate through the different tasks and the different applications that you use in a day to day in your Mac. And that's how I saw Siri, right? There's some type of assistant that can help me complete tasks and can do all sorts of tasks and analysis and can memorize things and can understand photos, organize my information, and so on. But this is very different from that. And I am not sure if this is something that's going to remain long term, but I think it's interesting that Apple decided to fully integrate ChatGPT. And now, when you talk to Siri, Siri can decide for you whether it's necessary to use something like ChatGPT or it can solve the task. So, one last thing I want to add here with this ChatGPT integration, the first thing that came to mind for me was privacy. You can read exactly what they are doing. So you control when ChatGPT is used and will be asked before any of your information is shared, right? So you have to consent for your information to be shared with ChatGPT. Now, what happens on the ChatGPT side, what happens on the OpenAI side of things, we have no clue. I have heard some rumors. I don't know if those are official statements from Apple. I would love to find out more. I'll probably have to do a little bit more digging around to see if there's more information shared about this because I think this is something that would concern me as a user. Now, nothing against ChatGPT, nothing against OpenAI. I actually use OpenAI, the APIs, and ChatGPT, the product. I have it on my phone, on my iPhone. I use it on a daily basis to get tasks done. But if this is a serious path that Apple is taking, I'm very interested to know how that information is shared, right? Because I think they're also going to add more different types of models, or they're going to make, I believe I heard a rumor as well that is they're going to make Gemini models available here as well. That will be interesting too, because then how do you decide which of these models to use and when to use them and in which scenarios? Are we going to favor, ChatGPT over Gemini, or are we going to provide an interface that allows us to pick that model, right? So that will be interesting because I think that requires some level of automation and that probably requires a bit of more attention on that user experience and how it would look. This is why I was saying, right, an assistant counting on other assistants is not really an easy problem. It can really break the experience. So I'm very curious how this integration progresses and how Apple is integrating with the rest of the AI ecosystem. So those are just some thoughts. And something that really caught my attention here, right before that ChatGPT integration announcement, you see the word privacy here. This is the first thing that clicked on my mind, right? Privacy, because then there is this information sharing that's happening. And what they claim is that Apple Intelligence is designed to protect your privacy at every step. It's integrating into the core of your iPhone, iPad, and Mac through on device processing. So it's aware of your personal information without collecting your personal information. And with groundbreaking private cloud compute, this is something they emphasize in their announcement. Apple Intelligence can draw on larger server based models running on Apple Silicon to handle more complex requests for you while protecting your privacy. So, indeed, there are larger server based models that Apple can also tap into, right? Their own proprietary models. How does this play into this Siri assistant and all of these kind of integrations that's happening, right? I'm very curious from a user perspective, but also from a product perspective, what's going to be the strategy in the long term. And obviously, privacy is going to be a main thing. You, as the user, want to know where that data is going and how much is being shared as well, because that's the thing. We don't really know what's the context that's being passed. Is there personal information that is being passed? And if so, how is that being passed? How is that kept privately? And so there is a lot of emphasis on privacy here, and that makes complete sense for me. I think it's very smart from Apple to talk about privacy and make privacy a first class citizen in any type of integration that's happening or any of the Apple Intelligence announcements that were made as well, because there is a transfer of information happening here. These models, they do leverage this personal information to create more personalized outputs. So I'm very curious about this, how this moves. If you have any opinions about that, I would love to hear them from you. Leave them in the comments. I'm happy to have a deeper discussion about this in a separate video. But I think it's all exciting news, right? And these are things that we kind of need to think more deeply about. So those are the main news here for the Apple Intelligence announcement. And you can check out the links. There's another link also where they go through all the different announcements that were made under Apple Intelligence, and I'll share the blogs and all the links in the description.